Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I'm an Italian soldier, an Alpino, just came back from my mission in Afghanistan. I was deployed in a military base in БЛДЦК, in Herat region. Italian bases in the area are designed as FOB, Forward Operation Base. Basically an outpost in the middle of nowhere, patrolling the area and preparing the ground for more military forces. During the years we were involved in minor guerrilla activities in the area, even if in recent years enemies' activity there intensified. At the moment I will talk about how the stress was getting higher. But the Taliban was the least of our problems, even if we still didn't know it. Local population was in general, if not friendly, not hostile to us. Americans don't get involved too easily with people here, too serious, too menacing. Italians have a reputation for being quite friendly, and not so dictatorial to civilians. That stereotype Italiani brava gent seems to apply well here. Even so, people here don't speak or open very easily. So it was very weird when that night, an old man from a nearby village approached our sentinels at the gates. He looks quite shaken, confused. The sentinels made him stop in front of the gates, while the sleeping translator was awoken to speak with him. As second in command, I assisted Caporal Sergio Margarini while he took the old man in his tent to understand the situation. The translator, with us, had trouble understanding the babbling man.
He says his village was roamed. Dead people on the streets. His daughter and wife vanished, asks for help.
Sergio goes right to the point.
Taliban's attacked. Today. Is weird. NATO intelligence signaled the area was less risky now.
The translator spoke again, with difficulty, to the man.
Not Talibans. Something else. Something that shouldn't be there. Doesn't want to tell me who. He's scared to hell. Just repeat they need help.
Sergio is perplexed. Aiding the local population is one of the primary goals of the peacekeeping mission, but proceeding with such scarce information could be very risky for us.
I don't know. It all seems so confusing. We should communicate with the HQ. For operations like this we need authorization. But since this afternoon all communication is down, we are cut it out. And is weird, it happens often in secluded places like this. But even the satellite's communications are down, and this never happened before. Maybe we should wait until tomorrow, send a unit in Herat and see what they say in HQ.
I get into his monologue.
Tomorrow could be too late. If there are still survivors, waiting so many hours could be dangerous. If this man came here by foot, the village can't be too distant. An expedition could clear the situation.
He thinks a bit, lost in his thoughts.
You're right, after all. Waiting could only cost more civilian loss. Vincenzoni, wake up the others. You head to the village, now.
The dirt road was dark, and the 3 Linz, armored cars went as fast as the terrain condition allowed them to do. The old man stayed at the base, too exhausted to even move, following the indication on the map and without the assistance of the GPS. It took us a solid half an hour to get there, considering we got lost a pair of times before arriving. The village was on a low hill. Everything dark, the Linzes barely illuminated the small streets of it. Upon entering the area, we could not see any signs of life. A lot of doors were open, but no proof of fight or shooting. Nothing. An unreal silence enveloped the place, while even nature was too scared to make some noise. Tenant Aldo Bassoni and I were the first to get off the vehicles, giving order to the troops. 10 men in total, plus the 2 of us. First order was to inspect the houses in a team of 4. The 3 unit checked every home, and no fucking people inside. An entire village vanished in the air. While inspecting the last houses, one of the men, Ferrero, called me inside one of them.
I think we got something here.
As I enter the poor house, in the basically only room of it, I see a freezing image. A child, open from neck to the waist, insides all around the floor. No signs of the head, but a sign of biting on the top of the neck. By an incredibly huge jaw. Legs visibly broken. One of the men goes out to puke.
Madonna. What in the fucking world did this?
It was De Filippi, a carabiniere from Naples that during his service witnessed corpses left behind by the camera.
Never seen anything like this, never after Taliban's attacks. Ferrero finished to inspect the houses and regroup in the village square.
Outside the house, I'm trying to recap the situation with the troops. But even before speaking, I noticed something was wrong. I can't understand what at first, then I realize. They are 11. Pasolli next to me. I mentally recount them. 11. The only light source is offered by the flashlight on the helmet, so I take out a bigger one from my pocket. I whisper in Pasolli's ear. There is one more, and you know it is not possible. Help me recognize them. I order them to stay still, without telling the reason. They are nervous now. I point my flashlight directly to their faces. I mentally say their name. Benelli, De Filippi, Tonelli, Rossi. La Rosa, Esposito, and I freeze myself. No one noticed before because of the poor illumination, but the soldier I'm pointing at now. He has no fucking face. He has a uniform, helmet, but no eyes, no mouth, no nose. The moment I notice, the soldiers next to him, or it, notice the same thing, and start to scream loud. In the following confusion, the lights from the troops' heads start to shake, and the situation goes out of control. People start to shoot, while desperate screamings all around.
What's going on? Percodio, what's going on?
We all start to run, in total panic. I can't understand the situation. Confused shootings go on, they mostly just hit the walls, no good illumination. Others are screaming. I just found myself in a lince. The vehicle is heavily armored, and except for a tank or a high caliber, nothing can penetrate here. In the vehicle I find Esposito and Iacono in the front seats. We get locked inside. We can't see anything outside, all in the darkness. The lights caused by shootings illuminate intermittently the place, while the helmets' flashlights of the soldiers dance in the night, creating a stroboscopic effect.
What's going on?
Iacono stares at me, looking for an answer I can't give. I don't know Marco, in the tension. I call him by his name, I don't know. Diakane. I don't see anything. We must stay inside here. Esposito, start the fucking engine. We must illuminate the area. Esposito isn't hearing me. He's praying, in Neapolitan dialect, and I understand almost nothing. Esposito, speak damn Italian. I can't understand you. Esposito. He's catatonic. He saw the no face directly before the mess would start, and just couldn't stand it.
Is no use. I already tried before. The engine doesn't work. No light, anything.
Iacono speak fast, out of breath. Meanwhile, the shootings and the shouting end. I can hear another Lince's door closing. Someone else like us found repair in a vehicle. And again, the silence. I lost my flashlight in the mess, and the ones on our helmets just don't want to work. So, we are also blind. Then we hear a voice coming from outside. Me and Iacono look at each other in disbelief, as we recognize the same prayers Esposito said before, but in a very higher tone, with even his same accent. Then, something started to furiously scratch the back of the vehicle, like an animal. Big one. Then on the windows. We can't see what is doing it. The only relief we have at this very moment is that they are bulletproof. We are safe until we are inside. Minutes go by as the noises go on. Someone, or something, get on the top of the lince. We are scared to death. We stay silent, unable to even speak. Even Esposito. An hour probably passed like this, with noises of heavy footsteps outside. Suddenly strong lights hit the back of our vehicle. It's a big truck. With joy, we see it as one of our own. And in that moment, my heart decided I just can't go anymore. And I passed out. When I wake up again, I'm in my tent, in the base. Sergio is there.
Finally, you woke up. I was scared you wouldn't again.
He explained what happened when I collapsed. Hearing shootings from our location, Sergio sent out almost every man in the base to rescue us. When they arrived there were no corpses. 7 of us were missing, the other, alive, still in the vehicles. Except for the bullets everywhere, and signs of big scratches on the linces. Nothing else was left to help understand what happened. NATO command, along with the Italian one, took it as a Taliban attack on the village. Yeah, that's it. My witnessing, along with Iaconos and the other ones, was taken only as delirium caused by PTSD. We were sent home a week later, with a badge and congratulations by the Republic's president himself. The first month here, we were hospitalized for psychological rehab. Esposito hanged himself in his room. Sometimes I still call Iacono. He's the only one I speak to about all of this. No one else would believe it. We still don't know what happened, but one thing is sure. It's not the guerrilla fighters that are the real danger in those places.
What happened to the guy that came to the HQ? Did he ever said anything?
Honestly, I don't know. When I woke up in the camp he wasn't there anymore, and I didn't think to ask about him. Probably went to Herat, Maybe was questioned in NATO HQ, no one mentioned him to me. Maybe sent to a refugee camp, I hope for him, even if his info would be useful to us. I doubt he would speak even under torture of what he knew. I was thinking about the time when I got back in Italy. Marco asked me about him too. He was convinced that maybe talking with the survivors the man would be prone to speak. Who knows? Also, I must add that in Italy there wasn't much noise about it. The majority of citizens don't care much about the army, or massacre regarding the military in foreign countries. Unlike the US, we don't have a strong military culture, or big patriotism. There was a state funeral, the official version was given, Taliban's attack, and after like a week all was forgotten in the country. Like in İNSATİABLE bombing, not a big deal for the public opinion. Military is not much considered, the army is just seen as a futile expense. With my own family, I just confirmed the official version, and that I didn't remember much. Useless to say, I haven't slept much since my homecoming. There's a recurring nightmare that haunts Marco. It's Christmas morning. I'm in the Basilica of St. Antonio for the traditional Santa Messa. My wife and my children sit next to me, my brother and father behind us. We are happy, like always, on this day of the year. Everything is ready at home for our lunch. The children sing the pray. My wife smiles. Suddenly outside, the bright sky becomes dark, like the night already comes. I feel my wife shaking in fear, close to me. There's a noisy bumping against the church main doors, like someone wanting to come inside. On the tall windows we hear scratching sounds. My children cry, my father faints behind me. And then, like an evil choir, we hear the same Esposito's prayer we heard outside the Linz that night. In some inhuman high tone. We stay there, praying for the mercy of our Madonna. And then the doors of the church open behind us. I turn my head, in true terror, and the dream ends there. At least twice a week, always the same dream. And his wife every time is there next to him, ignoring what's happening in his mind. So I'm back again. I promised some previous story about my time dispatched in Herat. Some minor things happened. Things that back then I just dismissed as normal situations in countries involved in war. But that now totally changed meanings to me. Signals that I just stupidly ignored. Some month before the massacre happened, our unit was often involved in patrolling on the main roads of the region. Usually, dirt streets that went through the fields and hills and connected small villages between them. We had to check almost every vehicle. Not a big deal, since there was only like one every 2 or 3 hours. Harmless farmers most of times. We were 2 Linz and 5 men in total. The vehicles were facing each other, on the sides of the road. There was also Esposito and Bassoni. We were smoking and joking at that moment, doing the checkpoint was hell boring out in the nowhere. And some men were playing briscola inside a vehicle. The road went straight for at least a kilometer, before disappearing behind a hill. At first we heard a great noise. A car's engine, probably very old, at full capacity. We already knew what's going on even before seeing it, made specific training for that. A car coming our way at full speed. And as we thought, we saw a rusty, light blue car coming to the checkpoint at full power. Just appeared from behind the hill. We know the procedure. We have time to take aim at the vehicle, as the other men come out of the Linz, totally surprised. My cigarette fell over. The car get closer every second passing, adrenaline pumping my body. As I know that's probably a bombing car meant to annihilate all of us. Just before the order to shoot is given, the old vehicle brakes in the middle of the road. A man, shaking and crying, came out of the car. I smell a trap, but we can't kill him on the spot, even if he's very likely a Taliban. That's not the international procedure.
Come to us, hands up and open. No sudden moves.
Nadir, our translator, screams the orders to the man and he slowly get to us. Usually we would make the suspect facing the ground, hands behind the back, but getting close to him with the risk of a bomb inside a car was a total no-no.
And take off your clothes.
Nadir translates fast. Always crying in despair, the man obeyed. He's almost naked, no signs of bombs on him. We make him dress again, while I communicate the situation to HQ. Suspect apparently not armed, car status to be verified. When he reaches us, we can't sure say what's going on. In these cases, bombing against our structures or checkpoint, the assaulters don't stop, they just drive to the target and explode. They are trained to not fear the death. Or at least, to embrace it. The fact alone he stopped at our orders is weird enough. Not normal. He's shaken, and I admit that handcuffing him as a security measure makes me uncomfortable. He seems very powerless at that moment. I speak with Bassoni. Maybe he's just a civilian bothered by Taliban forces. The situation is not clear. HQ said to interrogate him. I get to him. Now he stopped crying, but he's still in big shock. Natter next to me, translating. What happened? Natter is very quick in translating me to him, and him to me.
He comes from a nearby farm, behind the village. His farm. He has a goat. Lives there with wife and daughter.
There are other people in his farm. Maybe people are hostile to us. The man shakes his head. Where is your family? When Natter asks him the question, the man starts to cry again. Goes on for a minute, then calm himself a bit and answers.
They are dead.
I stare at the man. His eyes beg me to stop his sufferance. Who killed them? How?
In a way that shouldn't happen after it happened, he drove as fast as possible. Didn't know what to do. He found us.
He's in terrible condition. Before going on, I offer him some coffee from my thermos. I would like to give him some of my grappa, but I know that as a Muslim he couldn't accept it, even if it would help him very much now. I give him a cigarette, he declines. Now that he feel a bit more comfortable, no more threatened by people that previously pointed rifles to his face, I politely ask him again the question. Who killed your family? Why? He seems to trust me more now, as I clearly showed him I'm not an enemy to him. He stays silent for a moment, then speaks slowly. Regret in his eyes.
He killed them.
We both stare for a moment. Maybe Natter understood bad, but he confirms the same thing. Before going on, I ask the man's name. Ahmed. Ahmed, why did you do this? Someone forced you. While Natter translates for the man, Basoni get next to me.
NATO HQ gave orders to wait here and maintain the checkpoint. When possible, they'll send a patrol on the location this man comes from to inspect.
I nod, still focused on Ahmed, that is talking with the translator.
He told me that some hour ago his wife's brother came back home. He lives there, and was missing for 2 days. Ahmed tried to look for him around for a while, but no signs of him. Anyway, Ahmed and the 2 women were in the house when his brother-in-law opened the door. They didn't hear any footsteps outside the house, as the wife greeted the brother with great joy. Ahmed soon noticed the man was weird. He didn't speak or move. There, still on the entrance. He didn't even blink. And then Ahmed looked better at the man. Before, the strong sun from outside didn't let him see very clear. But now he focused more on the vanished man.
Ahmed asked for some water. We didn't notice, but he was very dehydrated, like he was in the desert for an entire day. But he wasn't, and that was a really weird physiological reaction. After he drank enough, we got back to the interview.
As Ahmed was saying, he looked at the man. His face, he didn't know how to explain, but seemed messed up. Like one eye in a higher position than the other, just under the eyebrow. The nose is also higher, the upper point touching the forehead, and the mouth is diagonal. The women at first didn't notice, but at that point Ahmed was terribly scared. He yelled at the thing on the door, saying that a shaitan would not stay in his house. The women now realized what was happening, and started to cry.
Now Ahmed goes on speaking, as the translator tries to explain what he says.
Ahmed was petrified. He was sure that was no more his brother-in-law. But he didn't know how to send away that terrible demon from his house. He wasn't able to practice ruqya to exorcise that monstrosity from his place. Only thing he could use to defend his family was a more mundane old, high-caliber Soviet rifle he found abandoned decades ago. He fled to take it in his small room. And when he got back, he shot right in the creature's chest, leaving there a hole. But it was not useful, as the demon just stayed still, looking with big euphoria at Ahmed. He tried shooting the demon again, this time on the head. Another hole took away part of the man's skull. But the thing was there, like nothing happened.
Again, the man started to shake when speaking to Nadir, just staring at my feet as he recollect what happened.
Ahmed knew it. He knew his beloved wife and daughters would greatly suffer. A destiny worse than death itself. So he did what he had to save their souls. He shot in their head, before the monster could make them suffer. Ahmed wanted to end his own life too now. But he couldn't, cause his religion forbid it. He just pointed the rifle against the demon waiting to die. But the monster sprinted to him, and in an instant grabbed the weapon. With only one hand, the monster flexed the gun's barrel. Then, facing the evil presence, Ahmed was ready for his destiny.
Now Ahmed takes a long pause. He seems in a delirious state now. I can almost smell his fear. Nadir put a hand on his shoulder. Even the translator seems very nervous now. Taking a big breath, Ahmed goes on with his story.
The twisted demon's mouth, untouched by the previous shot, turns in a distorted smile. It whispers in Ahmed's ear something he doesn't want to repeat. And then he just leaves, slowly walks outside, and just vanishes like he appeared. Ahmed stood there, frozen in fear for an undefined amount of time. Still can't fully realize what happened. He didn't know what happened. He just wanted to speak to an imam. Just get away from there. He took his old car, and then encountered us.
I nod to Ahmed. I don't actually believe him. For sure he saw some gucked up shit, but I'm convinced it is something more pragmatical. Maybe the Taliban messed with his family, and his brain elaborated this story trying to get away with what happened, or maybe what they forced him to do, or maybe something else. I don't know. This man seems sincere. Doesn't look like a cold-blooded murder. Women's life in this area is not very worthy to local men. Murders about trivial things happen, but to me this is not the case. Sometime later a NATO convoy approached us. Just a pair of military jeep. French or Dutch soldiers, I don't remember. They take under custody Ahmed and proceed to his farm for investigation. And that's it. We left the checkpoint not much later. Back in our base, speaking with Margarini, I find out that in the farm they found the 2 female corpses. Bullets in the brain. Ahmed went crazy, so they left him in the vehicle. The NATO theory is that some Taliban passed by, maybe wanting food or repair, or maybe to take Ahmed as a fighter with them by force. Maybe wanted to have some fun with his women. To spare the women this, he killed them. They interrogated the man again, but the same stupid story. They believe he was too scared to tell the truth. Anyway, they dismissed it as a not important case, and it just finished there. As for Ahmed, I don't know, maybe still held captive by the military. I just hoped he could speak with the person he needed. Just one thing. Do you know if they found a rifle in the house? He looked confused.
A rifle. Oh yeah, old Soviet model in very bad condition. Not usable anymore as I heard.
Bad condition. It was flexed, you know. He laughed at me.
Flexed? What are you saying? Come on. Not that I know, they weren't very specific on this anyway.
At that moment I just accepted the explanation and just forgot the topic. But after what happened I thought again, what do they mean with very bad condition? If it was truly flexed, it would be for sure a solid proof of what the man told. Who in the world could flex a barrel? Only exposure to very high temperatures, and I don't think that was the case. Anyway, that's one of the small story I thought about again after my return. To me, it now starts to make sense.
The next couple of tales from the Alpino take place a few days apart.
Anyway, as I already said, I finally had the courage to speak with my mother about what happened. Since my homecoming we didn't speak much. Like everyone in the family, she was just relieved I was still alive, and did not want to create more stress forcing me to remember and live again what happened. But she knows me well, and could clearly see the pain I'm living since then. So, I needed to share it with her, even if this would cost sufferance for her. The silence between us was killing me. So, I told almost everything, knowing how messed up and crazy this could sound for her. But she's smart and strong, and was with me while I was painfully remembering. So, here's what came out from our long conversation. She believes and trusts me. She's sure that I really believe what I told her, and she knows I'm not fucking crazy. But for sure, it is not an easy story to accept. She just didn't know what to think about all this. She's religious, very religious, and she admits that the devil can manifest itself in some way, even if usually through human acts. Then, she told me something I didn't expect. Something that may be us not very related, but is just weird in a similar way, too similar. She never told me this before, for sure it's not something to tell before sleeping at night. Giuseppe Pasolli was my mother's grandfather. Born in 1899, he was just 16 when the World War I enraged Europe. Like all the Italian boys of that generation, he was called to fight against Austrians coming from the north. Just boys, unprepared, used as cannon fodder against Germanic forces. Almost an entire generation was decimated by the war. He served under the Alpini, the mountain infantry of the Italian army. They were one of the most massive forces on the field in that bloody war. Fought mostly on the mountains, mainly on the Alps. He stayed for the first time away from the battlefield, then he was sent on Monte Grappa to hold position against the Austrians. In the trenches, in the dirt, in the cold, in the snow. In the blood. People decimated on a daily basis, under the machine gun. Holding position in the trench, assaulting, then going back. Defending. Trying to reach the highest position, stealing them from the enemy. The stress, super high every day, without knowing if the next day he would survive. Anyway, it was winter, and Monte Grappa is a tall mountain. Going there was terrible, the mules being the most effective transportation for guns ammo on those terrain. Giuseppe saw a lot of terrifying shit. Underage boys made in pieces by enemy artillery or by a grenade. He died very old. My mother was already a young woman. He felt that he didn't have much to live for, so he wanted to drop a heavy weight he carried in all his civilian life. Something never dared to tell before. He called his nephews, along with my mother. All of them almost all adults. He wanted to share it with beloved one. And then he told the actual story. As said, he was deployed on Monte Grappa. He befriended a guy from Middle Italy. They endured a lot together in the trench. Became very close. At that moment he wasn't in the first line, the hot spot, where massacre was routine. But he knows he eventually would be sent there. And one order came from high up: they must investigate, scout and retake an isolated trench near enemy lines which lost radio contact. Supposedly, it was taken by an Austrian, and going there as a scout would just be a self-end. But that's how Italian generals made use of their troops, sending them against the enemy. No matter what. Wave after wave. It was their old and blind way to see the war. Sacrificing men. So along with his fellow soldier and his friend, they follow orders. It takes some hours to reach the position. They must march, under the snow and in very impervious terrain to reach this trench. As far as Giuseppe knows, the Austrian trench is not very distant to the Italian one, facing it. They are now getting closer. Very close. They now walk slowly, very slowly. Silent. It's night and they can't illuminate, in the hope the eventual enemy won't spot them from a distance. The risk is huge, anyway, even with dark help. As they get closer, they hear no noise. Which is normal, actually. If Italians are still there, the trench warfare forces them to reduce at minimum eventual sound, so the enemy can't understand what's going on. Where are the sentinel for the night, where they are dislocated? In such a situation, even the light of your cigarette can cost you your life. And if Austrians already took the trench, they would apply the same logic, waiting for more Italians to come. Approaching the trench, now very close, always scared to death that the enemy is waiting for them. My grandfather's troop is ready to catch a sound. A small light. A movement. In the worst case, a shoot. But nothing. And this is now weird, because from the trench they are now visible. If Alpini are still there, a sentinel will halt them. If the Crocai were there instead, they would just now open the fire. But no, nothing, the trench apparently empty. So now they are right in front of the trench. The commander got, slowly, inside at first. The men follow him. The darkness doesn't let them see inside, but the only fact that they are still alive by itself is a good sign. The official officer silently takes out a lighter. Very weak light, also risky in the situation, but it was too dark to understand what's going on there. The light is just too weak to properly illuminate the area, but they can see at least the ground, their feet. Corpses. Italian uniform. Luckily, none of the men stepped on them. The groups get very nervous and point the rifle around looking for the Austrians, but no signs of them. Giuseppe gets close to his friend, ready for the worst. But nothing happens. They, crouched, proceed to inspect the trench, with only the weak lighter as light source. The noise, low, in the dark. From his position, just behind his commander, Giuseppe can see a shadow in the dark moving. The official sees it too. Order with a sign to the troop to halt. He gets close enough for the light to reach the movement. There, a man, in Italian uniform, is on the top of a corpse. And the scene is unreal. My great-grandfather has seen everything in war, bodies torn apart in the worst way possible. Blood, guts around, people dismembered by shrapnel, even soldiers killed by maces like in middle age. But that was too much even for him. The man is biting off the corpse's face. Like a rabid dog, like a beast, he's biting and taking off flesh from the body's head, eating voraciously the lips, the cheeks, the nose, even the eyes. When this man, this thing, notices the light turning his head toward them. Cold, blank eyes stare maliciously at them. The troops there were confused, scared. They don't even have the time to aim and fire. That it just jumps out of the trench and disappears in the direction of the Austrian trench. Which is basically a self-end, cause their machine gun would just take him down like a duck flying from his hunter. Giuseppe and his comrades don't have the courage to look above the trench. After some seconds they just hear a machine gun shooting from the Austrians' direction. Germanic soldiers shouting in their unintelligible language, like trying to spot the enemy. Which is also very weird, because the first burst would have eradicated every human being, unable to hide or run in the open field. Then another violent burst of the machine gun, other screams. And the silence of the cold night upon Monte Grappa. Italians took back that position. They didn't know if the Austrians were still on the opposing side, and for the first day there they didn't dare to explore enemy territory. Eventually, on the second day Austrians were clearly present. Italian commanders don't know if they are the same as that shooter at the Running Man the first night, or only a new backup that took back the position, and never knew. In the great mess that was World War I, there was just no time to pay attention to that event. Hundreds of soldiers died every day on both sides, so it wasn't just such a big deal. Great War was so fucked up that no one cared. But Giuseppe did, and almost took this to the grave. He died some months later and he told this to his relatives. And they didn't take the story seriously, including my mother. Told by a dying old man that experienced the Grand Guerre as a teen. During the years she forgot that old story, but now she felt the urge to share with me. Maybe he really was just a very messed up soldier that saw too much war horrors, or the creepy take of an old man. No clue on that. But what if it was true? After what I saw, I'm prone to believe it really happened. From a friend.
Was in Iraq early last year. Is a Marine bro. Is communications specialist. Not much fighting. His job was to go and fix stuff for people. Basically, helped fix military and civilian comms related stuff. Radios, power lines, the few cell towers in the area. Went into a building to fix a shittily rigged radio system that Iraqi police and military needed. Marine bro is working with an Iraqi electrician and a few other Marines to try and fix the damn thing. Then they hear screaming and a boom. Iraqi bro packs his shit. Says this is bad. I go and runs out of the building. Nobody shoots at him. Nothing happens. He hops into the Humvee with the driver and a few other Marines and just sits. Marine bro and the other guys are still in position to start fighting. Radio down to the guys outside. They're confused. They didn't hear anything. They take up defensive positions anyway. Everyone is ready to start fighting. More talking to other Marines and even some Air Force dudes miles away. Nobody saw or heard anything. There had been zero hostile activity in that area for months. Marine bro slowly goes back to fixing the radio equipment. Boom, boom, boom. More screams. Everyone is confused. It sounds like all hell broke loose outside. But the Humvees are just fine. Marines just standing outside smoking. Nobody hears anything. Marine bro keeps working. As he works, periodic screams and explosions sound around him and his partners. Nobody outside ever hears it. Just them. He finishes up and goes to talk to Iraqi bro. Sometimes when work. Noises like war or death. Marine bro never had it happen again. And he still wants to believe he was hearing old recordings that were coming through some of the comms equipment. Or they were hearing stuff from far away. Through some of the Iraqi radios in the room. But he had shut the power off. And there was no receiver installed to even get incoming radio. He was pretty spooked.
So, I got a call from Marco. A bad one. Nicola, the guy from Bologna. The one that they found still hugging another soldier's arm. He was still in a very confused state. Didn't speak for the first week. Then later slowly started again, but refused to speak about his experience. They found a finger in one of his pockets. Still don't know how it fell there. Anyway, yesterday he was found with his wrists cutted. Marco can't, but probably I'll go to the funeral. The note was left, but the content is not known for now. Today I was at the funeral. It took me a bit to come, so I was already tired when I finally arrived. Anyway, unfortunately I didn't have much time to speak with Chiara, Nicola's widow, or the rest of his family. Anyway, I left my contact to her, and tonight I'll sleep in a local hotel. I proposed to her and Nicola's brother, if they feel, to meet and speak a bit about what happened and what Nicola told before taking his life. During the ceremony, obviously we didn't have time to speak, but 20 minutes ago his brother sent me a message. He and Chiara want to see me tomorrow. I accepted. Other than me, there was the other survivor, Francesco, at the funeral. He's from a town near Florence, so he came and went back in the same day by car. So we just spoke a bit after the funeral, because he had to go back home. Anyway, after I found out the thing between us, shit went down. He barely saw that fucker grabbing one of the men and then throwing him against an house. Killing him. He told me it was so inhumanly fast it all happened in some seconds. Then the thing started to run around at an incredible speed, everyone shooting at him, but it was like shooting to a tornado. Impossible to hit. Sometimes the things, running between the panicking group, grabbed someone and just took him along behind in the dark. momentarily disappearing from the sight, then coming back from another direction to hit again. Comrades just started to disappear in the mess of people screaming and shooting at the air. All this hit and retreated at a speed hard to describe. Also, the lighting of our flashlights on the helmet was useless and it was hard to see. Let's not even talk about aiming. It was like he could only see just some frame. After he barely saw some of that shit and tried unsuccessfully to take down the hostile, he had the most logic idea and got in the protection of a lince. Already inside, there was La Rosa, scared like him. They heard weird noises outside the lince. He described, in the distance, the same noises we heard when it was outside our vehicle. The crazy Esposito's voice. They tried, like us, to get on their lince's engine, without results. After that, something tried to get inside their vehicle, maybe attracted by their voices. Scratching on the metal, knocking on the glass, etc. 10 minutes of this shit, and then silence. After a bit, La Rosa went in total panic. He just wanted to get outside, to look for help. He was getting claustrophobic, probably couldn't stand the stress. He felt like in a cage. Maybe, La Rosa said, that thing got away, and they could go calling for help. Maybe the other linces worked, so they could get away from that shit. Anyway, Francesco did his best to keep the other man inside. It was no use, at that moment La Rosa wasn't lucid. He just pushed away Francesco from him, opened the door quickly and sprinted away, disappearing into the night. For a second Francesco considered to follow the man and take him back. Then survival instinct kicked in and he just barricaded himself in the vehicle. In the following time, he can't recall how much time passed. He could hear noises in the distance. Just a few times, something got near his lens and pushed the vehicle, tapping on the glass. Francesco couldn't see clearly what, too dark, only indistinct shape. Then, after an undefined amount of time, the truck came there. Just in time actually, because he was starting to consider using his pistol to take his life. And yeah, basically that's it. I don't know what Rossi, Nicola, experienced, and unfortunately I didn't have a chance to find out. But for sure, for him was even worse than for us. So, today I met Chiara and Matteo, Nicola's brother. I had lunch in a local osteria. The food was good. This is the place where lasagna was invented, the wine also. But obviously I wasn't very hungry, so I didn't eat much. Anyway, after lunch we met at Chiara's house. At first, they were nervous about the whole situation. It seemed clear to me that they didn't speak about this with other people, and for them I was a stranger that barely knew their relatives. Chiara offered me a coffee, and while it was boiling in the mocha a weird silence enveloped the kitchen. She served me the tazzina of coffee, and then I took the courage to break the silence. I feel very sorry for what happened to Nicola. I heard that he showed some signs of distress lately, but it was normal since what happened. Unfortunately, as you probably know, he's not the first of us to do it. So, may I ask you what he told you about what happened? Chiara stares at the table, purposely avoiding my eyes. She speaks first.
Well, not much. After he came here from rehab, he was very different. With me, a lot of silence. Didn't want to speak about it. To be honest, we never directly faced the topic. He just got very upset when I tried to get to it.
Matteo puts a hand on her shoulder.
He didn't want to scare you. Too much stuff for you. He didn't know how you would react. Well,
he stared directly at me while I finished the coffee and eat a small cookie the woman kindly offered me.
With me it was the same. In general, he seemed just unplugged by the real world. Until I was tired and stressed by the situation. I forced him to speak. I faced him. Whatever happened, I was his brother and we always shared everything.
He drinks glass of water, then goes on.
Suddenly, he cried. Desperately. We were alone in the house in that moment. He started to violently shaken. I didn't know what to do. He was no more the man I knew. He was a weak little puppy. Terrified. As bad as remembering could be. Sharing with me was the first step to get through it. So, after a bit of this, he finally spoke about that night.
Chiara is apparently too anxious now, so we bring her to her bed and leave there to rest. Back in the kitchen, he proceeds with his brother's story.
After your team got to the empty village, and you found no enemies, Nicola and the others were called for a sort of inspection. Weird. You gave the order to stay in line. And one by one pointed a light on everybody's face. Here Nicola didn't know what happened. Soldiers next to him started to scream and shout, without any explanation. Something was taking down the group one by one, running and hiding in the darkness around. Shootings were of no use, as soldiers went on disappearing. Nicola looked for the only place that seemed safe in that moment and sprinted to one of the lens. When he was just some meter of distance from it, something from behind grabbed his leg and made him fall, making his helmet also fall in relative light. The flashlight of his fallen helmet was pointed at the lens, so he basically had no visual behind himself. Still on the ground, he rapidly turned around to see who or what was so tightly grabbing his leg. In the darkness he could barely see, but also from his voice he understood was another soldier, Števiaľ. He was screaming in both pain and fear. Someone was pulling away. In the darkness, the soldier, whoever he was, he should be very strong, caused Števiaľ immediately lost the grip on Nicola's leg. Before the man could disappear away, Nicola grabbed one of his and pulled, strongest he could, using all of his weight. But the one pulling the other side, out of Nicola's voice, was just too fucking strong. It was like a horse was pulling that man. After only a few seconds, the pull from the other side was so inhumanly strong and ferocious that the body of Števiaľ itself got teared apart, and his arm was still in Nicola's hands. Crazy. That was it. Nicola heard the poor man screaming as he was taking God knows where. He was so shocked he didn't throw away the arm, but hold it like it was a baby. He got finally on the lens, covered by Števiaľ's blood. No one was on the vehicle. Nicola tried to start the car. Uselessly. The lens was of no use. No chance to run away, or at least to illuminate the area. Panic. The distant screaming stopped, and for a moment there was a surreal silence. Suddenly, a noise just outside the vehicle. Nicola tried to look from the window, but it was too dark to see something. Then, someone or something charged the lens side. The blinded doors resisted well, but the vehicle was moved a bit by the violent impact. Another charge, this time from the other side, like from a raging bull. After that, Nicola thought it was the end. He started to pray to every saint he knew. He recited O Gesù d'amore exceso, Padre Nostro, and all the other praise he learned as a child at Catechismo. The bumping stopped. My brother was there, ready for the final blow. Instead, a voice repeated his same words.
O Gesù d'amore exceso, non ti avisi my officio.
The problem is that it was his own voice, but distorted, like in a falsetto. Mocking him, the voice repeated his words again for some minute. Nicola was at his limit. Go away, or kill me if you want. I can't stand this no more. After he told this, the voice stopped, and then something hit with incredible force against the windows, trying to get inside. The armored glass stayed still, just a minor crack where the blow hit it. But it did his work. But a glass designed to deflect bullets was getting damaged by whatever was outside. The point was clear. That thing wanted to get inside, wanted to get Nicola at every cost. Enraged, frustrated because of all that resistance, the thing got on the top of the vehicle, charged again. It went for a lot, my brother inside living every second like it was the last. Crying, no more force to even pray, hugging that bloody arms like it was a teddy bear. Desperately. After a bit it stopped, went away. Bro collapsed for the too prolonged stress, and was woken up by the troops that rushed there to help. He didn't speak for days. Unlike you and others he didn't witness when asked. Spoke a bit with the psychologist. And wanting to get home he lied, that he didn't remember. That was just relieved to be alive. He came back home, and then, well, you know the rest.
He lit himself a cigarette.
My brother was crazy. He imagined everything. It was the PTSD.
He looked at me, waiting an answer. I don't know what he saw, but no, it was not his imagination, if it can help. He smoked, doubtful.
I don't know if it helps.
I nod. Honestly, I don't know what else should I say. It would be useless. About the note, I heard he left one. You've seen it?
No. He cut himself in his car, in a very isolated area. I think to spare his wife to find him at home. Someone found him and called Carabinieri. They said there was a note on the passenger's seat, but they had to confiscate momentarily for investigational reasons. They still have it in Caserma barracks.
I went away not much time later. Chiara was still sleeping, took probably a sedative, so couldn't see her again. And that's it. Matteo told me that when they will give him back the note, he will tell me. Probably useless, but there is still some curiosity in me about that piece of paper.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.